George Orwell, a master of the satirical novel armed with the spirit of criticism, was an Englishman born in India in 1903. A year after he was born, his family moved to England. In England, he is said to have experienced extreme prejudice against the upper class. After giving up going to university, he applied for the Imperial Police and served in Myanmar and India for 5 years. Through his police activities, he witnesses the reality of colonialism. Orwell, who resigned from the police force after serving 5 years, began his career as a full-fledged writer. He participated in the Spanish Civil War as a volunteer soldier and actively participated in social activities. George Orwell left masterpieces that will endure in the history of literature, such as 1984 and Animal Farm, famous for his satire and critical spirit. George Orwell's representative work, 1984, is the epitome of the dystopian novel and was published in 1949. It takes place in a hypothetical country called Oceania and shows the evils of a totalitarian society in which the state thoroughly controls individuals. George Orwell makes us think about how important individual freedom is through this work, while raising awareness about the excessive control of the state. It is clear that 1984, which is the background of the work, must have seemed like a distant future at the time of writing the novel. We who live now, 30 years after 1984, also read this work while admiring the insight of the author who seems to have foreseen modern society. Because of this foresight, this work makes me think that its value will not change over time. The protagonist is an Oceania government official named Winston Smith. He becomes romantically involved with a fellow civil servant named Julia. Meanwhile, Winston gets to know a middle-aged man named O'Brien, and he plays a major role in the story as a person with whom Winston somehow feels a sense of kinship. Charrington, the owner of the antique shop that Winston frequents, also plays an important role. Major storyline. The novel is set in 1984 after a huge all-out nuclear war broke out in the 1950s. After this nuclear war, the world was reorganized into 3 great nations, one of which is Oceania. Oceania includes the Americas, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the United Kingdom. Eurasia consists of Russia and the European continent, and East Asia consists of East Asia, including China. These 3 countries form alliances in which 2 countries attack the other. Then the alliance is broken, and they form an alliance with another country, and those 2 countries attack the other country again. Hi, Tony. If you substitute the countries of George Orwell's hypothetical with the countries of the real world, what countries would they be?
I think they are the United States, Soviet Union, and China. When the Soviet Union and the United States were in a state of Cold War, the United States increased China's economic power to check the Soviet Union, which had a powerful military. This strategy is similar to how the United States has attracted China as an economic partner of the free world.
In this way, the countries maintain a hostile symbiotic system that prevents the system from collapsing while waging a never-ending war. Hi, Tony. Do they generally use this strategy in countries with dictatorships, including China?
Yes, authoritarian countries commonly use this strategy. Although not directly at war now, the Chinese Communist leadership continues to provocatively attack the capitalist United States and the West with rhetoric in order to instill patriotism among the Chinese people and defend the system.
In the novel, the three superstates are described as only fighting small-scale wars and implicitly refraining from tactics that could lead to the total destruction of the other country. The three superpowers in the novel are reminiscent of the three military power countries of the present era. Is that right, Tony?
Yes, that's right. The three superstates in the novel are reminiscent of the United States, China, and Russia. They have nuclear weapons, so they absolutely avoid all-out war with the other countries, even though they might engage in small-scale local proxy wars. In the Korean War, North Korea represented China and the Soviet Union, and South Korea represented the United States and the free world. In the Vietnam War, North Vietnam fought on behalf of China, and South Vietnam fought on behalf of the United States and the free world. Right now, we can say that Ukraine is fighting on behalf of the free world, the West.
The totalitarian state of Oceania, the setting of 1984, is sustained by constant surveillance of the educated class, policies that keep the people ignorant, and perpetual war justifying excessive state intervention. Dictatorship countries don't always want their people to be intelligent, so by blocking the flow of information from the West, it makes the people ignorant. Is that right, Tony?
Yes, that's right. Historically, totalitarian dictatorships have always used policies to keep the people ignorant and keep an eye on the educated class. If the people are smart, they can pursue democracy and liberalism and cause a revolution and rebellion. So Pol Pot regime in Cambodia killed 2 million of its educated people. School teachers, religious people, police officers, soldiers, and even those who wore glasses and those with white and soft hands were all imprisoned in concentration camps or taken to rural areas where they were forced to work and killed.
If the war does not continue, the ruling class will lose its important cause to control the people, and if surplus products are produced and a country becomes economically prosperous, a revolution will soon occur. The country that is the setting of the work is Oceania. Oceania was established by a one-party dictatorship under the ideology of British socialism. People are divided into inside party members, outside party members, and the general public called proles, and the party thoroughly controls everyone's life and ideology. The symbol of this control is the telescreen with the face of the leader, Big Brother. The party monitors and controls the daily lives of the people by installing this telescreen in public places and even in private homes. The main character, Winston Smith, is a civil servant working in the Central Department of Oceania's Ministry of Truth. His main job is to modify and manipulate various records according to the party's taste. Winston has a sense of skepticism about this life and hostility to the party while carrying out the work assigned to him. He secretly writes these thoughts and feelings in his diary. Even keeping a diary was forbidden in Oceania. Winston secretly buys pre-1950s items from an antique shop run by a man named Charrington. The party thoroughly obliterates the records and memories of the past and manipulates the truth as if only the party had existed for a long time, so purchasing old books or relics of the past is prohibited. Meanwhile, Winston has a mysterious sense of kinship with a man in the Ministry of Truth named O'Brien. He has a vague suspicion that O'Brien might also feel dissatisfaction with the party. Then one day, Winston secretly receives a note from a female employee of the Ministry of Truth. Surprisingly, it is a note saying, "I love you." Her name is Julia, and they become lovers who enjoy a secret love affair, avoiding the surveillance of the party, which controls even individual relationships.
To continue this secret love affair, they use an empty room on the second floor of Charrington's store as a hiding place, and Winston thinks it is a safe place. One day, the two go looking for O'Brien, thinking he is a member of the Brotherhood, a secret organization that systematically resists the party. O'Brien greets them as if he has been waiting and accepts them as members, claiming that he is a leader of the Brotherhood. He secretly gives them the Brotherhood's book, which has been designated as a forbidden book. The two of them read the book, which reveals the true nature of the party in their hideout. While reading the book, they are suddenly arrested. It turns out that the store owner, Charrington, was an undercover cop and they fell into a trap. Winston and Julia are imprisoned separately and brutally tortured. Surprisingly, O'Brien appears and tortures Winston. He had pretended to be a member of the Brotherhood and was playing the role of finding impure elements who were dissatisfied with the party. O'Brien brutally tortures Winston, forcing him to uncritically accept the party's direction and ideas. Winston succumbs to torture and then is released from the torture chamber and held in isolation to be re-educated in party ideas. However, Winston, who can't submit in his heart, calls Julia while talking in his sleep one day. When it is known that Winston has not submitted, O'Brien drags him to the dreaded Room 101. O'Brien tries to torture Winston using rats, his greatest fears, and Winston, horrified, screams that O'Brien should torture Julia instead. Released for betraying Julia, he is completely devastated by continuous surveillance and ideological education. The novel ends with Winston realizing that he has come to love Big Brother after all. Thank you for watching the video, George Orwell's 1984, provided by History and Current Events. Gina, Jane, Bella, and Tony have contributed so far as narrators. Thank you.